Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
That kid is back on the escalator again.
Ain't gonna hurt.
Here's my boomstick!
Game over, man. It's game over.
Welcome to the Bargain Bin. He is your host, Ben Mason.
And he's your co-host, Sandra Luketic. And today we're talking 1985's Teen Wolf. Now, here I would normally say, if you're listening to this episode, we expect you have already seen the film. But I've heard from a couple of people that it actually turns them away from listening to the episode. They'll stop it and they'll go watch the movie. And by the time that's done, they don't have time to listen. So what I'm going to say from here on out is we're just going to spoil the shit out of this movie.
Oh, no, spoilers. Oh, man, it's such a new movie.
So 1985's Teen Wolf, I have to say, first off, directed by Rod Daniel, who did...
1985? Uh-oh.
Yeah. Oh, you're fine. You didn't watch that goddamn awful TV show. Or Teen Wolf 2. If you watched the cartoon from 86, that's okay. But this is directed by Rod Daniel, who did 89's K-9 with Jim Belushi. A terrible movie, yes, but a fun one. And co-written by Joseph Loeb, who wrote the screenplay for Commando. So some weird collaborations going on here. But I'm assuming this 85 basketball werewolf movie may not have been prominent in your youth, but you had seen it when you were younger. Is that a safe assumption?
I saw it at some point.
Yes, same. I don't remember when I saw it, but I know it was a staple of my youth.
And just to clarify on my joke, they did do a movie for the Teen Wolf show.
Oh, that's right.
Came out in 2023. But no, I didn't watch it.
Did you know they were going to do a third sequel to, a second sequel, I guess. A third movie in the franchise that was just canceled.
Good.
Yeah, it was going to star Alyssa Milano.
They didn't need a second one.
Oh, I know. Trust me. I hate that movie. Maybe it's just because I'm not a Jason Bateman fan. I know a lot of people out there are, but we didn't need Teen Wolf 2 TOO. You don't need that piggyback movie. I understand why the studios did it, but obviously it was not a success. And do you know why?
Money?
Michael J. Fox, man. That guy is money in 85. Do you know what? Okay, this movie came in second place opening weekend. Do you know what it came in second place behind?
You know I don't.
Back to the Future.
Oh, it's a good weekend for Michael J. Fox.
Fucking awesome weekend for Michael J. Fox. And all because he was on a hiatus from Family Ties. Like, he managed to bang out two amazing movies while starring in a hit show.
Well,
like, this is Michael J. Fox's year. But yeah,
cool.
early memories of the film. You just know that you watched it?
Yeah. I don't even think I saw it when I was young. Maybe like teens, early 20s. It was on like TV on like a Saturday afternoon or something like that.
Makes sense. It got a lot of TV play for sure.
Yeah.
I know that we have your game here.
We sure do.
But
I don't even know what to say about this one.
I am very nervous.
Okay.
Because...
Is that your way of saying let's get into it?
Yeah.
All right. So we have one and I think three halves, because I'm not entirely sure how big the roles were. I didn't do all of my research.
See, I don't know any.
But there are four that are sharing credits. I think a couple of them at least are minor. A second one that might be a major, and then one major.
One major?
Yeah.
Shit.
Well, major in that it wasn't like a small role in either of the movies, right? Like it wasn't like a leading role in either of the movies, but it wasn't like a cameo or something like that, or random security guard X or anything like that.
Oh God. Yeah. See, I don't know who it could be. Like, I'm sure we covered Michael J. Fox. I'm just forgetting. But like, my only other guess would be Troy Evans. Other than that, I've got nothing. So teach me, Professor Luketic. Who have we seen before?
Well, James Hampton, who played Harold Howard,
yeah,
was Arthur Watts in Pump Up the Volume.
He was.
Yes, he was.
Oh, wow. See, I thought it could have been James Hampton, but I couldn't think of anything else he was in. Like, he has one of those very recognizable faces. So I know I've seen him a lot. I just didn't realize we've covered him before. Interesting. Who else?
The one that I'm not sure of, because I don't remember the role in the second movie, is that James McCrell,
Mr. Thorne?
yeah, was Lou Landers in The Howling.
Yeah, okay. I know who you're talking about. That's a stretch, but I get you.
I don't remember The Howling because it was a terrible movie that I hated covering.
You
but
shut
it was
your
another.
mouth.
I guess he likes werewolf movies, good or bad.
Everyone should.
You were right. Troy Evans, who was the basketball coach for the Dragons, was Granger in Under Siege.
Yes. See, I mainly remember him from Ace Ventura.
Yeah, I don't know.
Really?
No idea. None whatsoever.
Oh, wow. He's part of the coaching staff of the Miami Dolphins.
Sure. Those weren't the real coaches. Dan
Marino's not a real person. You know that, right?
Yeah, that's... No. He was the one real one.
No. He was created to sell those gloves, isotoner gloves. And then he was such a big hit in the movie, they put him on... They got someone to play him for the Dolphins. It just turned out that the guy was actually a really good football player.
That's what it was. Okay. And then the last one, which is small, was Scott Pollan, who was Kirk, was Brian Hunter in Pump Up the Volume.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I confuse him with another guy. I forget his name. He was in Biodome. But yeah, okay, cool. That's passable. 2
people in this movie were also in Pump Up the Volume.
That's a great fucking movie. I highly recommend everyone go back and rewatch that.
All right, let's get into the movie, man.
Okay. Quickly before we get into the film, possibly one of the best film posters of all time. Iconic, maybe not best.
It's a good one.
I love it. I remember seeing that on all the video shelves. That is a poster I would love to have. Where would you put that? I don't know, but it's iconic for 80s teen comedies. But okay, so the opening music during the credit sequence does not scream comedy to me. It's like that weird bass-driven heartbeat, and we get white text on a black background. But we eventually open up on a high school basketball game with our boy Michael J. Fox playing Scott Howard. So right away, I'm going to say, explain what's happening here, basketball expert.
This isn't basketball, so I don't know what you want me to say.
Yeah, I figured you'd say that. So obviously the Beavers, our team, are being destroyed by the Dragons.
Do they always do that in a movie?
They have to, right?
They have this this more, I guess, unassuming name like the Beavers, and they're up against the Dragons. It's like every time.
Yeah, but I mean, at least they're creative. Later on, we get the Cadets from a military school, and you're like, well, let's try and be somewhat, inventive, guys. Come on, a little bit of creativity goes a long way. But yeah, you mentioned the Dragons. We get the closest thing to an antagonist, I guess, in the film. Mick.
He's not even that bad of an antagonist.
He's not, right?
Like,
he's just an asshole.
But yeah, but I mean, we'll get to some parts. I don't even think he's in the wrong at some times.
No, he's not. That's just it. You have to side with him. You can't help it at some point. But I have a note saying the true antagonist of the film, self-limitations created by not believing in yourself, which is
not believing in yourself. He's a starting point guard that's like 5'4".
This is 80s teen comedy through and through. But I'm okay with that. Are you? Like, keeping in mind, this is it's a fucking movie. Like,
well, I was gonna say he's dribbling that basketball way too high to have a good handle, but at 5'4", he's probably dribbling at the height of an average person.
It's actually just the laws of gravity bouncing it up to his head level. They hurl all of our characters at us at once. Maybe not actually introducing them by name, but we see everybody. Yeah. So we've got Pamela in the bleachers. We got Chubby, who's a fellow teammate. Coach Finstock, Styles, and Lewis, and finally Boof.
And of course, Chuck. Chuck?
Chubby?
What was it? Chubby. No, is that what his name was?
Yeah, they called him Chubbs sometimes.
Okay. This guy's always got to be in every 80s sports movie as well.
Yeah, he really is. Mark Holton is his name. And the thing is, I don't mind that he plays that character in every movie because he's actually really entertaining.
Oh, he's great fun. It's just one of those stereotypical characters you gotta have in this movie. Who also, by the way, does not look like he's in high school.
No. God, no. Most of these people do not look like they're in high school.
You gotta start like a counter of how many people actually look like how many look like they're actually in high school. It's not a high number.
What did you think of the conversation between Coach Finstock and the coach of the Dragons, Troy Evans?
I don't even remember it.
Oh, Finstock just wants to forfeit the game. But Troy Evans is like, no, there's a lot to learn from losing.
I thought he was like, we got numbers to worry about or something like that, per game numbers. Yeah. Which is, makes sense, right? Yeah. You do per game numbers. If your game is forfeit and you only get half of it, that's going to tank your numbers.
Fair enough. The whole opening of this movie is failure. Scott steals the ball with a strange growl and throws a Hail Mary, which fails horribly.
I love it. Because they already show you the score. They're getting absolutely annihilated. He steals the ball, and I forget if it's Nick or Mick. Mick. So common of a protagonist name or antagonist name as well for 80s movies. Because we had Nick in Tough Turf. Anyway, even Mick is like, what are you doing? And he just like fires this thing off and it goes to like slow motion and he's like, am I going to get it? Am I going to get it? And it's like, even if you got it, you'd still lose by like 40. But no, you don't even get that. You fail miserably and you still lost like an idiot.
I do love this though, because all of our main characters are set up, and I hate to use the term losers. Outcasts maybe is better, but we're all on the outskirts. None of us are in the popular crowd. Even Styles, who tries to talk to everybody and be that cool guy, is not the cool guy.
No, but he's also not a loser. I think you're right in outcast, because he's just kind of doing his own thing.
Yes. Another trope of 80s teen comedies, though. But we get the locker room scene and the whole bit with Chubb's locker, which is fine, I guess. I do like that as Scott's trying to pull out all the random bits of food and put them on top of the locker, Chubb's just grabbing them, putting them back in, just not acknowledging what he's saying. But
because this was a deflection tactic.
Yeah.
Scott was upset with himself and losing and this and that, and he's just trying to divert the attention to how Chubbs is not losing weight like he was supposed to. And it's like, that's not what we're talking about here, dude.
Yeah, well, they divert the viewer's attention with Styles coming into the locker room. Full-on, very boisterous character, trying to raise money to get a keg for that night's party. And I get that. That's fun. What I don't get is the friendship between Scott and Styles. It never made much sense to me how these two would have befriended each other. Does it make sense to you?
No. They could have just simply thrown us a very brief look at, they live next door to each other. Oh, you grew up together. Now you're friends, right?
Yeah.
So personalities changing as you grow older, that kind of happens. But no, I have no idea.
And maybe it's like what you said earlier, that Styles isn't necessarily a loser. He's an outsider, an outcast. And that way he can kind of bridge the popular groups with unpopular groups. It's kind of like Scott's hallway into people he's not actually friends with. So I guess we do need that character. It just kind of seems very forced.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we get the chest hair or chest fur scene after Styles leaves, which is pretty gross. I don't know how Scott didn't realize that was growing out of his chest.
Because it was instantaneous.
Yeah. Although the ripping it out scene, like the shot, he actually looked like it hurt. So Michael J. Fox, did you know he was a good actor?
He's an amazing actor. How do you not know that?
Next up is Scott's talk with Coach Finstock. And I love everything about it, because Finstock is basically saying, I'm here for you, but I'm not really here for you.
It's almost like, I'm here for you as much as my job requires.
Yeah. Well, he's even like, what is it? Drugs, girls? I'd love to help, but I'm really tapped out this month. And originally mistakes it for Scott going through puberty. But my favorite part of this scene, and I think you'd agree with me, is when he tries to have that heart-to-heart with Scott. And this isn't word for word, but basically he's saying, A kid came to me a few years ago. Pretty much the same thing you're saying right now. Had to quit the team and whatnot. And Scott just goes, well, what happened to the kid? And he goes, I don't know. He quit.
He is the most useless coach ever.
But he's so entertaining for the film, and that's what I love. They know what they're doing here for the most part.
Well, it's all of the chips are against him. Like, Scott doesn't have anything in his corner.
No. He's a tiny, tiny man with no skill. Until he has skill, which is never really addressed.
None of this is addressed.
None of it.
Is this an origin story? Not really. Is it a werewolf movie? Yeah, I mean, he turns into a werewolf during it.
Is it a basketball film?
No!
No, God, no. Well, what is it? Michael J. Fox was in Back to the Future, and now he's in this movie. But we get our full intro to Boof, who I would argue is Scott's best friend, even above Styles. Boof doesn't really get her due as a character, I find.
No.
And that's a shame.
Doesn't get her due as a person in the movie.
That's what I mean. Like, she's there. She's a great character, one of the best, I would argue. But she's just kind of there to not even guide Scott. What do you think Boof's point is in the movie?
That there was something in Scott to love all along, and he just didn't see it.
Yeah. What a slap in the face.
And
poor Boof.
This is another one of those cliche characters that we have in all these 80s movies. The lovesick character who the main protagonist just doesn't realize. Yeah, hey, come on.
The nice thing about Boof, though, is she doesn't take any of Scott's shit.
No.
She calls him out on everything, and I love it.
Good.
Exactly. And it's weird because Scott and Styles are the typical 80s dude friends. But Scott will go that 80s route of pouring his heart out to Boof and then just ignores her every time she tries to do the same.
Yeah,
so
he's a bit of a jerk.
He is, and that's really weird because every time we see Michael J. Fox, we're supposed to like him. He's the underdog. We want to root for him. Even in like Class of 1984, which you haven't seen yet. And I underline yet. But like in this, The Secret of My Success, I mean, I shouldn't bring up Doc Hollywood, but there's that. Yeah, Scott's frustrations are at being average. The fear of being stuck working at his dad's hardware store, confusion as to why Pamela, a super popular girl, won't talk to him. And like you had mentioned, the whole time is completely blind to Boof actually being in love with him. The film does a decent job at capturing actual teenage situations, but they don't deal with them properly. Not lifelike anyway, so maybe it's just a film thing and I'm looking too much into that.
Usually, that's what you do.
I know. That's me, though. That's you know, it's a common thread of the show. That's why we're doing this. You get to shit on me for the fact that I actually love movies.
I would never.
Yeah, okay. So, Scott shows up to work at the hardware store, and we meet his father, Harold Howard, played by James Hampton. Thoughts on Harold?
I love this guy.
Me too, man.
He's just such a likable guy, and he's always playing these dads in movies where you're just like, I mean, I'd love to have this guy in my life.
Yeah, he is lovable all of the time. Perfectly cast as Scott's father here.
Yeah.
And this leads into one of the most memorable scenes for me, but it's not going to be an award for me. The dog whistle.
I don't understand this.
What part don't you understand?
Why does his dad not react to it?
That's my next note.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know. And I never picked up on that until this viewing. It's cool, I guess. But yeah,
I understand what they're doing with this. They're trying to go with the more subtle hinting, not so subtle, but more subtle hinting that he's transforming.
Yeah.
But his dad is right behind him.
Yeah.
And if his dad, as we find out later in the movie, is kind of regretful for not telling him about it earlier, heard this, maybe he would turn around and look around. Oh, my son is reacting. Perhaps I should say something.
And he does try and say something later on, but yes, that is absent from this scene. So it kind of feels like broken storytelling, but I can see how people would forget this if they only watch it once.
It's such a simple solution, though. Have it where his dad is, kind of giving him a hard time because he's late, because he had to run out. Oh, I've been waiting for you to go to the bank and do this deposit. And then the dad walks out the door. Michael J. Fox takes over the store. Now he's absent from the scene, and the whole thing makes sense.
Yes, I agree. And they could do that. It doesn't make you suspect anything going on with Harold. And they do something similar later on with Mr. Thorne that you're going to completely miss if you watch this only once. And we'll get into that. But next up, the theater scene. Scott delivering supplies from the store. Yeah.
You don't have a cart, a handbasket, anything?
Bags? He's carrying bags. Put it in something else. You're carrying too much.
You're working a hardware store.
And you're dropping shit all over the place. You're carrying paint. That could open and go everywhere. I'm surprised it didn't. That would have been great. Quick intro.
Shopping cart, anything.
Yeah. Assistant Principal Thorne. This is our introduction to him and the tension between him and Scott. I like it. There's that weird stress between student and authority, but we quickly move on to Pamela reading her lines. The director you mentioned before, Mr. Lawley, he's a creep, right?
Oh, total pervert.
Yeah. And even as a kid, I knew there was something wrong with this guy.
He's telling this girl who's supposed to be a teen in the movie that she needs to be more sensual with her lines. And it's like, what are you doing, dude?
Yeah. Back off, man. Just back off.
Yeah.
We get the furry hand transformation. And the werewolf effects in this movie, not great.
No.
But they serve the purpose they're there for, and I'm okay with that.
I think that when you see him in full makeup, it doesn't look so bad.
Yeah.
But when they're doing these transitional ones, it's definitely lacking something.
Yeah, when you get the hands here, you get teeth later are fine, but the ears in the van, like the ears look terrible. But Scott tries to ask Pamela to the party, but is shut down as her boyfriend Mick arrives.
Yes, because she has a boyfriend.
Yeah. There's a lot of instances in this film where we're supposed to cheer for Scott, but he's completely in the wrong.
Well, from this moment on, we find out that he has no regard for their relationship and is trying to move in on Mick's girl.
Yeah.
Whether she is
as a whole.
Yeah, like whether she is deserving of it or not, like back off, man.
Yeah, but he's our hero. We have to agree with him, right?
And Mick's actions aren't that far-fetched for someone who's like, hey man, stop hitting on my girlfriend.
He's an asshole jock, and that's how you would expect an asshole jock to react.
I don't know if I would expect anybody to not react like that. It's like, back off, man. What are you doing?
Next up, Styles trying to buy a keg of beer.
He's got charisma.
He really does. And horrible t-shirts.
It's not going to work.
It does not go well. I'm not going to get into the back and forth between Styles and the clerk, but I do really enjoy the defeated Styles hopping back in his car and Lewis sitting in the seat next to him. They don't make eye contact, and Lewis just gives this smirk as he looks up at the sky. Like, I knew you were going to fail. You're way too sure of yourself, and it's never going to work.
I do like this older clerk, though, because he's just not taking anything from these guys.
No, God, no.
He's just like, step on up. Who's going to get shot down next?
Well, you can tell he's been doing that job for years, and he's encountered the exact same situation countless times.
Yeah, you're not going to pull a fast one on this guy.
Cut over to the Howard residence. Scott tells his father that he's thinking about quitting the team and joining theater. And again, Harold just seems like the nicest father ever. Tries to have a talk with Scott, like you were saying before, should have happened at the store, but Styles arrives and cuts that short.
Yeah.
But at least we go back to the liquor store.
Yes, we do, because somebody's got to get that keg of beer.
And it's Scott's turn. Styles' plan, I find very problematic.
Okay.
Give Scott a water pistol and have him try and fake rob the store, but leave the money. That way, technically, he isn't robbing it.
Yeah, nobody said he was smart. He was charismatic.
Yes.
He's just not brilliant.
Yeah, he's all about partying and making money. He's industrious. This is one of my favorite scenes.
Okay.
Where Scott immediately gets shot down, but then his eyes glow red, and in his like really deep wolf voice, says, "Give me a keg of beer." When you put the trailer up at the end of our previous episode, I noticed that the voice used in the trailer is a lot shittier than what we get in the film. It sounds absolutely terrible. And I'm trying to figure out why they couldn't use the in-film voice. I guess it might have been a later edit to make it seem more menacing. But in the trailer, it's laughable. And I think
actually didn't even notice that.
Oh, yeah. This is a key scene to show the wolf starting to really take over Scott. And if you just watched the trailer, you'd be like, I don't care about this movie. This seems too comedic for what it is. I had mentioned Lewis a couple of times before. I really, really like this kid. What
does he do in this movie?
He calls Scott out on the Pamela thing. Straight up asks him about what's going on with Boof. And then later on, we see that he's actually scared of the fact that Scott's a fucking werewolf.
Yeah, not a lot of people seem to be.
No, he's the anchor of realism in the film. And I think it works really well because he's very much a tertiary character. We don't get a lot of Lewis, but when he's on screen, he's reacting as any actual human being would. I would say he's the voice of the audience for this film.
Guy's barely above set dressing most of the time.
Exactly. But I love that.
Why is his voice of reason coming from him?
I think the movie is just so over the top that it's a way for the writer-director to be like, yeah, we know what we're doing. And anybody out there criticizing it, Lewis got to it first.
All right.
But ignore all of that because it's time for urban surfing.
Oh, this might be the stupidest idea.
Okay, my next point just said, thoughts?
I was one of these people not in the hospital. Because they make it out to sound like it's not the first time.
No. Styles would be dead by now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And as a kid... It
does seem like Scott has, up until now, been reluctant to do it at all.
Completely.
I believe that at this point, it's just Styles that's been doing it. And then, yes, Styles should be in traction.
Yeah, I absolutely hate this. When I was a kid, I thought it was hilarious. So it shows that some of their target audience, they know what they're doing, and some people did find it funny. But yeah, like you said, there is no way he's staying on top of that van, especially barefoot.
The only part about it that I find actually funny is that before he gets up, he takes his jacket off to reveal a Hawaiian shirt.
Yeah.
It's you are getting right into it.
And you can't forget that we're listening to the Beach Boys.
Of course.
So it just works. The music is great. But then we get Scott's wolf ears that I mentioned before. Really bad, right?
Really bad. Not the worst in this movie, but really bad.
Yeah. And I don't like how Scott's pseudo transformations start and stop so fast. You look in the mirror, you've got werewolf ears. You look back, then you look in the mirror, and they're gone. The actual transformation in the bathroom does happen pretty quickly, but not that fucking fast. But whatever. The whole point of this is that we're on the way to the party. So we finally get there. It's a packed house. Pamela shoots down Scott, as she should. At what point does Scott, or should Scott just give up? In my opinion, a while ago.
Yeah, a long time ago.
And what are these fucking party games that they're playing? Why? Why are these party games that people are playing?
It's the 80s, man.
Okay, have you ever been to a party where the goal is to escape bindings while covered in whipped cream?
Didn't go to parties in the 80s, my friend.
Okay, so we got that. We've got, I guess, what is a Jell-O eating contest?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not going to fly today.
It's not a contest because
it's not a contest. He's just doing it.
Just eat Jell-O out of her shirt.
Yeah, just ram your face in her breasts and eat Jell-O.
How do I win? Eat the Jell-O. How do I lose? Don't eat the Jell-O. I don't know.
Yeah, there's no lose. Just go to town.
Yeah.
The 80s. 7 minutes in heaven is now 2 minutes in heaven. And of course, we get Scott and Boof paired up. Well, Boof lies, saying that she got Scott's name.
Which is good because Pam got his name, and when she looks at it, she is none too happy.
Yeah, yet. So yeah, Boof and Scott still make out in the closet. Boof is trying very hard, and Scott's claws rip her shirt.
Well, it's because the game said so. You do not have a freedom of will if the game says so.
You could not make up your own mind in the 80s, Sandro. I can attest to that.
No, those 2 random names were pulled out of the paper or out of the hat. You do it. That's it.
The 80s were a very forceful time.
Yeah.
Anyway, back at the house, Scott finally goes through the full transformation in the bathroom. So, thoughts on this transformation as well as the full werewolf makeup?
Well, I've already said it. The full werewolf makeup does not look that bad.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's covered enough. Like, for example, the ears, he's got the long hair. It's perfectly suitable. The transformation, much like the partials, is not great in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that after this, we don't really see him transforming. He's either in wolf costume or not. Any transformations take place off camera. So definitely the right decisions moving forward from here.
Yeah. But at least they tried something. Like you see his brow kind of like pulsing in and out or pulsating in and out. I thought that was fine, but they knew the limitations of what they could and couldn't do. I don't think I like full werewolf Scott. And I think it's because he looks more like a dog than anything. And it really reminded me of the Shaggy Dog when I was growing up. There's nothing menacing about it, and that's what I want from werewolves, but I get this is a comedy. It's just a plot element. You need to make him look cool. We get a cool werewolf, which I never really wanted, but it does work. It's just not for me.
For no reason at all.
Yeah. But probably the best thing about the scene is the reveal of Harold.
How is this the best? This is terrible.
I love it. He looks like a fucking Ewok. And I just want to hug him.
Exactly what I was thinking. He's a were-Ewok.
I loved it. How did you not like this?
It looks terrible. You're saying that Scott looks like a dog.
He does.
Here comes his dad looking like a Pomeranian or whatever. It's terrible.
I will take Ewok werewolf over dog werewolf. And I love it because it really works for Harold. The hair's not super long. Like Scott's this like teenager dealing with all of these like hormones and frustration, and Harold's just kind of, he's been through it for how many years? He doesn't care. He's super relaxed. So it feels like his werewolf reveal is going to be less crazy. And it's just like his hair is maybe a few inches long, whereas Scott's is 2 feet long.
I do love how his entire explanation is, I thought sometimes it skipped a generation.
Yeah.
That's it. Where this came from otherwise, no, that's just an affliction we have. Don't ask questions. There's no origin.
That's my next note here. Saying the next morning, Harold tries to explain the situation to him. And I love it because, like you said, the movie just shrugs off all popular conceptions of what a werewolf is. And I adore that. There's no backstory as to why the Howards are werewolves. There's no backstory as to how werewolves exist or what they do. There, honestly, like a sidestep, there's not even an explanation about Scott's mother's death. The whole thing is just, this is a situation, let's deal with it the best we can. And I find that incredibly refreshing.
At this point in the movie, I was thinking, I didn't even realize she was dead. I'm like, did she find out he was a werewolf and leave?
I mean, that would make sense.
Like, because they don't actually say it outright. I don't know if they say it outright in any part of the movie, just that, oh, your mom's gone.
Yeah.
But, yeah, at this point in the movie, I'm like, oh, I couldn't hide it from her, and she found out, she left. You know, we're shunned from the world, I had to hide it. And I was hoping it would skip a generation with you. But, no. You want explanations? Nope.
Don't got them.
Nope.
So we cut to the school lockers at the high school. And normally I'm not one for sight gags, but Styles opening up his locker and being buried under prop gag objects actually did make me laugh.
Well, he's a shyster. He's just trying to make a buck no matter how he can.
Yeah, he really is.
Also, like, we didn't ever mention it, but when they get to the party, after all of the struggles to get the keg, this is a pile of them.
Yeah.
Big savior. What do we do all of this for? It's like, this is one of Styles' attempts to become Mr. Popular, and it's not going to work because 8 other people did it.
Yeah, completely ignored. And that is actually Styles. Like, while he's out there, he's that wacky guy. He does get ignored a lot of the time. Pamela actually approaches Scott today. I don't like that. And it's like, oh, did you like cut your hair or something?
No, it's his animal magnetism.
Exactly. We don't need that because that never comes up again, ever. It's just a shitty way of writing in that Pamela's now aware of who Scott is. Boof gives him a shit ton of attitude, though, and I love it.
Good. You set him straight.
Yeah. And it's a very quick shift in the story direction. Like, it's a sharp turn, and it's very well done because we needed it. It just, some of it's pretty blatant, and some of it is well written. What did you think about the scenes of Scott being distracted in every class that day?
I understand why he would be distracted.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care to see these scenes. They don't actually weigh on the plot at any point.
I am completely with you. This is all unnecessary. Right up to being called up to work out a problem on the chalkboard. His hands transform and he books it out of the classroom. And some people are stunned, some people are laughing at him. But I appreciate it because it gives us Scott running through a freshly mopped hallway. Now, this has nothing to do with the story whatsoever. It's completely unnecessary, but surprisingly hilarious. I don't know how he managed to stay on his feet this entire time, because he was slipping and sliding all over that hallway. And I can tell by your silence you did not enjoy this nearly as much as I did.
I wouldn't say I enjoyed it, but I remember this scene. Like, this is one of those scenes that stood out in my mind.
Okay.
I don't know why. Maybe it's the camera work, the almost silhouetted shot of Scott as he's running away from the camera down the hall and slipping.
Mm-hmm.
I don't find it super. He's running down a hall and slipping. It's not super entertaining, but for some reason, it's like an iconic shot.
Yeah. Well, you can also see that there is a centimeter of water, like half an inch of water on the ground, because as he's trying to like regain his balance, you can see water splashing all over the place. So he was actually doing this, or maybe a stunt double. I don't know. But him running into that bathroom and there's just that nerdy kid writing on the mirrors with Sharpie, like, that's odd. But then it leads us to his encounter in the bathroom with Mr. Thorne, who accuses him of that vandalism. Without giving away why Thorne hates Scott so much, what do you think about this back and forth that we've been getting here and there?
I'm disappointed in it.
Why is that?
Because I had this expectation based on 80s films that at one point it was going to be revealed that Mr. Thorne was always in his corner, and we just didn't see it. He's always just trying to get him on the right path. We just never got it. It's like, no. In this movie, they just refused to go and fully commit to an antagonist. They just got a bunch of these partial antagonists. You know?
Yeah. I see that for sure. And I do like that idea, too, that he's just pulling for Scott to better himself and get to where he knows that Scott can be.
Even Styles could be considered an antagonist at one point, because later on, they could have pushed him a little further with using him to make money, right?
Yeah.
It's very close to the border for that, in my opinion, but it's like, just pick like Mick, Mr. Thorne, potentially Styles, like pick an antagonist. What are you doing? Like, commit.
That would be a really interesting twist, to have Styles come out at the end as being not the main antagonist, but have like a falling out between the two, because he would rather make money off of the wolf than be Scott's friend. I really like that. That's super dark, though. That'd be really cool.
I'm not saying they should have done it. I'm just expressing my disappointment with the movie failing to commit to just one legitimate antagonist.
Yeah, and that's a legitimate critique of this too, because we said earlier, the main antagonist is lack of believing in oneself, and we need something more tangible than that. We need to see it play out with character to character, like camera shots, and we only get teased with that here and there. Moving on to Styles' garage. Scott tries to tell him what's been happening while Styles digs for a weed stash. Scott transforms, revealing his secret. Is that a smart move?
Styles doesn't seem like the most reliable person to reveal that to.
But is Scott trying to keep it a secret?
No, he's clearly not.
Yeah. Why?
I don't know.
That's been a major problem for me with this movie, is that if you knew that you could turn into a werewolf pretty much whenever, and you know the only other person is your father who can also do that, stop. Don't just show people you do it, because honestly, this movie could go in a completely other direction where he just gets abducted by the government and experimented on for the rest of his life.
Yeah, and Styles sold him out for it. Because there was
Look at all that money.
Yeah.
Right? That's more realistic.
But like you said, a much darker version of this movie.
Could you imagine that swerve? The whole time we're leading up to this 80s teen romantic comedy, and then it just turns into a story of absolute betrayal and death. Fuck, I want to see that now. Anyway, like you said, Styles, probably not the most reliable person, but takes the whole thing rather well. Which...
if this was a cartoon or an animated movie or whatever, it would be one of these situations where he turns around and his eyes open up and his pupils are dollar size.
Yeah, exactly. And that
I don't care about you. I see money.
It makes so much sense for this movie. And that's what he does. Because Styles sees this as their fast track to popularity and financial gain. So Scott returns home to find his father and Booth playing basketball, which is something I never understood, but I'm okay with. And you're with me on that, though, right?
I love basketball. I love basketball maybe more than anything in this world outside of like my friends and family. You know this, right?
Yeah.
More than video games, more than anything.
Yeah.
We've never laughed like an idiot like these two just playing basketball. I'm just happy to be here. It's just, what are you laughing at?
It's heartwarming, but it doesn't make any sense.
And at least that, like, have them laugh in reaction to things they do or something, but it's like, she's just dribbling the ball and he's laughing his head off. Yeah. What are you doing? I wish I could be this happy about anything this simple.
But when they're done, Boof's leaving, and Harold kind of pressures Scott into walking her home. But, like, the whole head nod towards him and, like, turn the eyes towards Boof, be like, stop being a fucking idiot, and walk Boof home.
The other part I don't understand is, if Scott didn't come home at this moment, would she have just come over, played basketball with Harold, and then left?
Yeah, because you know Harold's going to have to be like, well, that was uncomfortable.
You're just here playing basketball with my dad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Please don't do that again.
Okay.
But yeah, I get the point of the scene. It's trying to get Scott and Boof to reconnect. And while that's all good and well, I think you're going to pick up on what I'm saying right here. You're going to predict it. What can I not take my eyes off in this shot? I can't believe you didn't notice this.
I don't know what you're getting at. And I feel like I've let you down.
Scott and Boof walking towards the camera, talking, but they're walking down this fucked up sidewalk.
Okay.
It's the most messed up, uneven sidewalk I've ever seen. Because every 3 or 4 feet, it has 45-degree vertical angles. Like a hurricane swept through and tried to rip trees out of the ground, and it just lifted up the sidewalk. Like you could, if you were running, you would have to jump over these sidewalk, not tiles, squares of sorts. I have no idea why this stands out to me as much as it does, but it is visually jarring. But anyway, the talk.
If asked the condition of the sidewalk, my response would be, did the camera pan that low?
Oh, no, it shows them. It's a long shot.
Somehow I did not get this. And normally I'm pretty good at catching these things like you.
Oh my God. When we are done recording, you have to go back and look at it because it doesn't make sense. It does not make sense to me at all. And I can't forget it. But
so in this movie with no explanation as to why there's a werewolf, the biggest mystery is the condition of this sidewalk.
Fuck, that's werewolf. Fine. That's an isolated issue. This is city planning, man. Like, there's no way people haven't complained about this. These are rich neighborhoods. There's no rich person that's going to be okay with the fact that they can't walk on their sidewalk. It's like you need a grappling hook to get over some of this shit.
Ben.
Yeah.
What are Scott and Booth doing right now?
Talking.
And?
Walking.
Exactly. So don't say you can't walk down this sidewalk.
But they always cut before they get to one of these projecting things.
They're
Like,
still doing it.
Yes, but they're always walking on the level part.
So we were watching a movie about a werewolf?
No, I'm watching a movie about fucked up sidewalks at this point. Just fucking go back and watch it when we're done and give this one to me.
Okay, I'm giving it to you right now. Just move on.
Okay, so Scott and Boof are talking, Sandro.
Yes.
And Scott thinks that it's best for him to remove himself from everything. Fine. This is just shoehorning a bonding scene in between the two. And we know, like, we all know watching this movie where these two characters are going to end up.
She's going to shoot him.
Yeah, silver bullet. goes after Harold next.
She tried to stop him with the power of love.
No. So the next day we get another absolutely amazing basketball game. The Cadets versus the Beavers. What to say about this game, Sandro?
There's nothing to say about this game, man.
Nothing. It's the same old thing. The Beavers get their asses kicked, but now Scott gets caught under a dog pile, turns into the wolf, and they run away with the win. Of course, everyone is shocked at first. I don't know why nobody's running for the doors.
That is exactly what was going through my mind. How does not a single person, not even just one, instinctively run away?
Yeah, or have one person in the back be like, kill it! Another question, why is Pamela always at the basketball games? Even when Mick's not playing. She's always in the stand.
You know how you easily fix that?
Write her out of the scene?
Make her one of the cheerleaders.
I guess, yeah.
Cheerleaders are going to be at all the home games, regardless.
Now, remember how you were saying that we should have had Harold react to the dog whistle?
Yes.
And none of us would have picked up on it, but it would have made sense upon a rewatch. This is what I was talking about with Thorne, because as soon as Scott turns into the wolf, Thorne backs up behind the stands, grabbing his crotch.
That's fantastic. I didn't even notice that.
Exactly. It's a joke that hasn't been referenced yet in the story and only plays out upon a rewatch. So kudos for them on doing that.
My bigger question with Thorne is he doesn't back off of Scott yet at this point.
No. Also, a question of Thorne is what are you doing? Like you never seem to work.
Well, no, but he's afraid of Scott's dad because he's a werewolf and he intimidated him. He sees Scott turn into a werewolf and is completely fine with it.
Yeah. This is where Thorne just whips out that crowbar that he's been hiding in his sleeve and just charges the court.
There's no reason to believe he wouldn't also be afraid of Scott. He doesn't back off until Harold tells him to back off.
Yeah. He's not really afraid of werewolves, Sandro. He's afraid of confrontation.
No, I guess. As long as that werewolf doesn't say anything to his face.
Exactly. Post-game celebration at the diner. Scott is the new school hero and not monster like he should be. And Pamela is all about him now. Why?
I don't know.
I have no idea.
Werewolves are well known for their popularity and bringing in money.
Yeah, you gonna stick with that?
I have no idea. It doesn't make sense.
Montage of the now popular Scott in school. It's fun. I get it. Another game and win for the Beavers.
Hold on.
Yes.
I want to go back to this montage in the school.
Okay.
Are we supposed to believe A,
yes,
he's getting better grades because the wolf form has increased his intelligence?
Mm-hmm.
Or 2, that his teachers are just giving him passing grades now?
I believe that he no longer suffers from self-doubt.
Oh, okay.
So he commits to the answers that he thinks are correct.
Oh, all right.
Now that's a jump. That's me putting more into the movie than I should be, but that's the only way this makes sense to me. Styles making that money selling Teen Wolf merchandise, and I kind of want one of those shirts. I'm not gonna lie.
It's so plain, though.
I know. I love it. It's it really is a bargain bin design.
Well, you can tell because it's just a plain white shirt with the minimal amount of print on it that it's like, how can I get the most cost-effective shirt to sell at the biggest profit? That's exactly what it is, and you know it.
Scott finds out that the theater director, Lolly, has written him into the play, and he cannot act.
No, he can't, because he's just a werewolf.
Yep, in military garb. One of the most troubling scenes for me is up next.
Okay.
And that is post-dress rehearsal. Pamela and Scott have sex in the dressing room.
They sure do.
Now, the really weird part is that Pamela wants to have sex with the wolf, not Scott.
Yes, she does.
Yeah. Not really referenced again, except for a puppy joke later on. But Pamela's fucked up.
Yes, she is.
Yeah. But also, Scott, keep this in mind, bud. Pamela's willing to have sex with an animal rather than you. That should be a warning sign to stay the fuck away.
Yeah.
So let's move on
I really
to bowling.
don't want to talk about this scene. It's messed
I'm
up.
moving on.
Yeah,
I'm totally moving on. Bowling scene. All of this confuses me.
Okay.
So Scott and Pamela are there on a date. She's wearing a Teen Wolf shirt. Mick is also at the bowling alley, but Mick and Pamela are still together. So why are Scott and Pamela on a date?
And why is Pamela on this date? She makes it very clear that all she wanted was to get freaky with him.
Mm-hmm.
Because later on he asks her to the dance and she says, "Oh, I have a boyfriend." So why are you still with him right now? You got what you wanted.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. This entire scene does not make sense. And she kisses Scott in front of Mick.
Why?
I don't know.
If you know that you only want Scott for that, why would you kiss him right in front of Mick to piss off your actual boyfriend?
Who you want to stay in a relationship with.
It doesn't make sense.
No. So that's why we go to a basketball game next. And
it's not quite what it is, but okay.
yeah, well, Scott's hogging the ball and using his newfound skills to outshine everyone. So we get it. It's an 80s teen film. We need that falling out with your friends storyline so we can be happy when we learn that teamwork is key. I still hate it. Styles shows up with a new beat to shit delivery van, and now it's time for Scott to urban surf in wolf form. Anything?
It's iconic.
Yeah.
It's there.
I think we can agree that iconic is not synonymous with good.
No.
But we get more Beach Boys, so I'm cool with that.
He's just more full of himself.
Yeah.
Really.
We do get the acknowledgement that Lewis is absent because he's nervous around Scott. So at least there's something of weight in the scene. Harold confronts his son about missing work, and Scott says he's dealing with a lot, and that being Thorne, Mick, the basketball team. And here we get something that's more prominent today than in the 80s. And at the time, it seemed like it was up to the main character to realize their own wrongdoings and make amends. But we get the parent calling out their kid while admitting their own faults. Because Harold immediately tells Scott that he dug his own hole with the team. That's his fault. You got to figure that one out. But admits that it's his own fault that Thorne's so hard on Scott. And the story you already brought up, Harold turned into a wolf out of anger because Thorne kept pursuing his girlfriend. And Thorne's reaction to this was to piss himself. But the whole point is control your emotions. Overall, I would say a great scene. Probably one of the strongest of the film. Are you on board with that?
It's good.
Yeah. Next up, Scott asks Boof to the dance. And she agrees as long as he's in human form. Scott refuses because everyone wants the wolf, not Scott. And now this message, for me, late into the movie, is starting to get way too heavy-handed.
Yeah.
It's been brought up time and time again, and now that's what they're relying on to push the story forward. We already know that's the case. We get it. Please don't treat us like idiots now. So there's a very brief getting ready for the dance montage. I remember thinking it was absolutely hilarious as a kid. How do you feel about this now with like the blow dryer and putting the suit on and all that?
It's typical.
It really is. It's almost lackluster, but it does get us to the actual dance, which totally negates the entire conversation that Scott and Boof had previously, because Scott shows up as the wolf and he and Boof dance. And Scott starts some weird werewolf take on the Thriller dance.
Yeah, it's bad.
But the rest of the crowd joins in. He's improvising this entire thing and they're right there with him. I fucking hate it. I hate it so much. And do you know, see if you are on the same page as me. What did this dance scene remind you of or make you think was better?
I don't know.
Once Bitten.
Oh, yeah, because you had Jim Carrey being phenomenal in that.
Exactly.
Because they added so much personality to it. This just looks like a crowd.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just visual noise. And I don't like it. Like, if you're going to throw in a dance scene in a teen horror comedy, well, it's not even comedy, a teen comedy with some horror elements, and you're gonna have one of this styles of scenes, like, focus on the main people. And that's what Once Bitten did, and did really well. Here, everybody just gets lost in a mess. But Scott turns back into human form for Boof. And after that happens, nobody notices that Scott's there. They actually just don't notice him.
There's probably a few people in the crowd that don't recognize him.
Yeah.
I've never seen this guy outside of his werewolf form. Who is this?
But Mick is there, and Mick just punches him out. So what happens? You want me to take this one?
Oh, that was an actual question?
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
All right. Very good. Scott wolfs
Why
out.
is Mick brave enough to even punch Scott out? Like, he can't just turn back into the werewolf.
I think he's just had enough. I think this is Mick snapping. Because Scott wolfs out, embarrasses Mick by, like, shredding his shirt, and then flees when he realizes he can't control himself. But Mick is still ready to go. He's ready to kick the shit out of Scott, human form or werewolf form. And like that should be your main concern. Not that you can't control yourself, but you've pissed off a guy to the point where he's willing to kill you. And it doesn't matter if you're a fucking werewolf. But no, that's not the point here. Thorne confronts Scott outside of the gym, but Harold shows up and makes Thorne piss himself again, which honestly is a really sick power play by Harold.
See, prior to Harold showing up, I thought this was going to be the moment where Thorne's like, here's your bit of advice.
Yeah, and that would make sense. That would be the perfect placement for it. What did you think about what we actually got?
I like how it happened. I love the way that Harold smugly even says, like, oh, I see your bodily functions still work, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But I don't like the context of it.
I don't like how Harold calls him Rusty, like his nickname, and growls at him, because all of a sudden Harold has become the bully. And that's not the Harold that we get throughout the rest of the film. I understand why it's there. It just feels a bit off for me.
Okay, fair enough.
Scott shows up as himself for rehearsal for the play, and Mr. Lawley writes him out of it immediately for not showing up in wolf form.
No, very predictable. They only want you for your wolf. I'm surprised they didn't give us that message already.
Yeah. It's weird to introduce that so late in the film, Sandro.
Yeah.
But at least Scott is full on refusing to be the wolf now, trying to do the right thing, which, like you acknowledged, we all saw coming. And now we're at the championship game. The frustrating thing here is that there's probably, 10 minutes left of the movie? I can
give or take,
Yeah, I can sum up what happens in 3 sentences. Beavers are getting their asses kicked, and Scott shows up as they agree to play together as a team. Guess what happens next? They win as the clock runs out. It's bullshit.
But we do get that sweet, sweet song.
Okay, well, before we get to that amazing song.
Yeah, I love Win in the End.
It's honestly, it works for this movie until it just straight up fucking doesn't.
It's one of my favorite 80s soundtrack songs.
You had to look up the title of the song, right?
No, I love this song. I'm not kidding around.
What are you talking about? When have you ever heard this before?
I told you, at work, I often listen to YouTube playlists of 80s soundtrack songs. It's where some of my movie picks have come from.
Oh, God.
I've told you this.
Yeah, not this specific song.
It's in the playlist.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. I have no way of knowing that. You like this song, right?
Yeah, I love this song.
Interesting. I find that hard to believe, but okay.
It's my favorite part of the movie.
Okay, that's a bit much.
I love this song.
All right, fine. I get your point. I just find it hard to believe that this is your favorite part of the movie.
It's because of how much I love it.
Yes, we've established. My problem with the ending of this movie is that somehow this team that has sucked before the wolf appeared now play like fucking superstars and beat the dragons.
Yeah, especially considering they're getting any practice in because they all just stood there while he played.
Yeah. Things to notice from the crowd, Sandro.
Okay.
Harold's there and gets beamed in the head by a ball of paper and is completely stunned looking around at what just happened. We keep getting shots of a mustachioed teenager wearing a green visor who looks completely confused at everything that happens, like he's never heard of basketball before. And we see him repeatedly.
I'd be confused at this game, too.
Any wide shots that have Coach Finstock in them show the actor not giving a single fuck about being on screen. He's either looking off to the side or staring at the floor.
Yeah, but they made it that Coach Finstock doesn't care about anything already as it is.
Yeah. And there's one major thing that I pointed out to you that we'll get to in a second. So, game's over. Beavers win. Scott blows past Pamela as the crowd rushes the court, and he goes directly to Booth. They kiss and then head up to the stands and hug Harold. Now, that one major thing I mentioned before, we finally get. And did you keep an eye out for it this time?
No.
The guy standing directly behind them, who we only see from the waist down, his pants are completely undone and wide open.
No, didn't pay attention.
Yeah. I told you to look for him.
I know, and I didn't.
Yeah. Because he's jumping up and down with his fly open, and then he can tell that he's on camera. So he pulls his shirt down to try and cover it, and then arms go up again, and the shirt comes up, and you see like his underwear, and then he just starts like violently trying to do up his zipper, then does it, and then jumps for joy. As we freeze frame on that, we roll credits, then go back to slow motion while credits are rolling, which then somehow lose focus, and then the movie's just over, playing with one of your favorite songs.
Yeah.
So that's Teen Wolf.
I don't get it. He wanted Pam the whole time, and he just goes by her?
I know.
That,
sure.
Yeah, it caught me off guard.
Do you think this was an expensive film?
No. Couldn't even get referees to come and look at the game.
Well, they had no way of knowing that Back to the Future was going to be such a massive hit. So what do you think this movie cost?
$1 million.
$4 million.
That seems high.
And they spent another $4 million on advertising. So we'll balloon that up to 8. How much money do you think this movie grossed?
100.
Not even close. 30.
Okay. Well, they still made money.
Yeah, they did. I mean, this movie is a success, and you can tell why they would try and do a sequel, which also was successful, just much less successful. Moving over to ratings, what do you think people over at IMDb have given it?
This feels like a 6 out of 10.
You pretty much nailed it, man. It's a 6.1.
Okay.
But going to Rotten Tomatoes, how many critics gave it a positive review overall?
80.
Almost half of that, 42.
Oh!
Yeah. Audience, I will say this, we're a little bit more favorable.
57.
52.
Okay. All right. Not bad.
So this movie, I think I've liked it more than most, but those aren't really high ratings. We've covered worse movies that have been higher regarded than that.
Oh, yeah.
But hopping into awards.
Let's do it. Who was your least favorite character?
Styles.
Really?
Yeah, I thought you'd find that one a little off. I get that he's that wacky 80s character that all of these movies had. And not even comedies. You brought up Tough Turf earlier in the episode. And it's very much Robert Downey Jr. to me from Tough Turf. But unlike Robert Downey Jr., I found Styles very annoying in this movie.
Really?
It wasn't balanced enough with what else was going on. He just stuck out way too much for me. So I get why he was there. I just never really enjoyed him being there.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. You?
I'm actually quite surprised. I didn't think Style was that bad.
He's not. He doesn't fit in the movie for me.
I just find him, because we said it, this stereotypical kind of annoying friend character is very common in these movies.
Yeah.
I found him to be the most, like, neutral. Where it's like, yeah,
wow.
Right, he's there. He's not causing too many problems. He's not overextending his abuse of his friend. He's not unsupportive. It's like, yeah, he's just there. It's completely, he's room temperature water.
All right. Who did you pick as least favorite?
Laurie Griffin as Pamela, because Pamela is messed up and maybe the biggest antagonist in this actual movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see your reasoning there. I have little to say about it. You nailed it.
Yeah. I think the less said better.
What about favorite character?
I had Jay Tars as Coach Finstock.
Yeah.
He's just so entertaining in his just not caring.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
I also picked Coach Finstock.
Amazing.
Yeah. And if this movie had been remade like 10 years ago, I 100% could see Norm Macdonald playing this character.
Oh, that would be amazing.
He would have been perfect.
His cadence and delivery would be so amazing because there would be a little bit more of a comedic uptick in his nonchalantness.
Yeah. Some of the lines that Finstock delivers are hilarious, but you give those to Norm Macdonald and they become iconic in a movie.
What was your most memorable line or favorite?
It's memorable and favorite, actually, from Coach Finstock.
Okay.
Memorable and favorite line, Coach Finstock. It doesn't matter how you play the game. It's whether you win or lose. And even that doesn't make all that much difference. It's perfect. And again, like I said, if you gave that line to Norm Macdonald, that would be one of my favorite lines in almost any movie ever. Memorable or favorite line for you?
It's also Coach Finstock, and now that you said Norm Macdonald, I'm just hearing it in my head as being said by him, where Michael J. Fox says, "What happened to the kid?" "Oh, I don't know. He was a third stringer. I didn't need him." And just the "oh, I don't know" part just feels like something I can hear Norm Macdonald saying.
Yeah. Also, like, I guess Scott saying, like, he's like first string or something, or even the coach brings it up. He's like, "Yeah, and you also have a job. I should be asking you for money."
There's so much good from a character who doesn't get that much screen time.
That's great. He's the most fun character in this movie. For sure.
Oh, yeah.
Memorable scene or favorite scene?
So I'm going to read this as I wrote it down. Handstand van surfing as it's iconic, even though it's dumb.
Yeah. I think most people would agree with you on that one.
Clearly, I'm going with memorable here, not favorite.
Yeah.
Because if I think Teen Wolf, I'm going to think of that scene, even though I will flat out say I think it is completely stupid.
Yeah, it is. But I agree with you. There are two scenes that come to mind immediately when I think of Teen Wolf. That is my second one.
Okay.
My first is the horror that Scott deals with in the bathroom transformation, only to open up the bathroom door and see Harold. I love it. I love it because it takes what should be an incredibly horrific scene, even though that's not the case in this movie, and then slaps you in the face with comedy right away. Because of that deadpan expression of, "I know what you're going through, it's fine."
Yeah, with a character that looks like he should be in a commercial selling really soft toilet paper.
I love it. It's great.
So what were your final thoughts on the movie, Ben?
I love the movie. I really do. Is it good? That's a different conversation altogether. It's a lot of fun. I'm glad to have revisited after so long. Highly recommended film. It's fun. It's not taxing. Michael J. Fox is great. Honestly, all the acting is pretty phenomenal. Fun story. It's got one of Sandro's favorite songs in it, so that ups it a notch. And honestly, leave it at that. Don't follow up with the sequel or the cartoon series or the TV series that
or
MTV...
rewatch.
Hey. Definitely rewatch. Not this 2023 nonsense. 1985 Teen Wolf is a classic. I love it. Sandro?
I like this movie. I don't seem to like it as much as you do. I do think that, much like the situation I described at the beginning, if it's a lazy Saturday, it's on TV, give it a watch. It's harmless. It's just a fun movie that you can watch. Don't think too much about it.
Interesting.
Well, that's our thoughts on Teen Wolf. If you guys want to share your thoughts, hit us up on social media. We are on Twitter at BSBargainBin, Facebook.com/BSBargainBin, YouTube.com/@BSBargainBin, or BSBargainBin.com. Ben, what are we watching next week?
Next week, we're going to have a very special guest, and the three of us will be recording live in the exact same room. Finally, we're going to be in Halifax. It's Ben, it's Sandro, it's our friend Josh, and we'll be talking 1994's Double Dragon.
– 2007, Los Angeles. The city has changed. Cops rule the day. Punks rule the night. And one man wants to rule them all. There's only one thing he needs to succeed.
This is only half of it. Find me the other half now.
And look who's got it.
It magnifies the power inside you. This half gives power over the body.
All right, so where's the on button?
Now, two brothers will stop at nothing to protect their half.
Look out!
And a madman will stop at nothing to possess it.
You're gonna love this.
Let's have some fun.
Who wants gum?
If they succeed, they're heroes. But if he does, they're history.
Watch your step. Time to skin you guys.
T2's Robert Patrick, Scott Wolf, Mark Dacascos, and Alyssa Milano, Double Dragon.
You said it. We don't really have to wear these, do we?
Until next time, have a good one.
All the best.